The night the truth shattered me began with a single look from him. Not a word, not a gesture, just that look. Cold, detached, as if the life he once fought to save was suddenly an inconvenience he wished he could erase. And the worst part was that even in that moment, my chest tightened with something dangerously close to hope. Grantley never did anything halfway. Not when he saved my life 2 years ago, and not now, when he seemed determined to pretend I no longer mattered. I had promised myself I was done with hospitals, done with white walls that smelled like disinfectant and memories. But life doesn't care about promises. Life, apparently, wanted me back under fluorescent lights and into the line of sight of the one man I had spent months trying to forget. Damien stood there like a ghost I had never managed to exorcise. Except ghosts didn't look this alive, or this heartbreakingly human. He flipped through my chart, refusing to meet my eyes. I watched the way his fingers tensed around the folder, as if the simple act of treating me again was some kind of burden, as if saving me once had been the mistake, and seeing me now was the consequence. The silence between us was a storm-gathering force. "Vitals are stable," he said finally, voice clipped. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. "Good to know you still care." His jaw tightened, that subtle twitch I remembered too well. "I care about all my patients." I laughed, a sharp sound, too small to hide the ache beneath it. "Right, of course. I forgot how professional you've become." His eyes flickered to mine at last. Just a second, just long enough to hurt. Because behind that thin veneer of indifference, I saw something raw, something that matched the chaos grinding in my chest. But then the mask slammed back into place. Damien brushed past me toward the doorway, his coat sweeping behind him like the tail of a closing chapter. "If you have pain," he said, "press the call button." "Damien," I called out before I could stop myself. He froze, but didn't turn. I felt the tremor in my own voice. "Please." Slowly, he faced me, his expression unreadable, as if he was afraid to let anything slip. "Why are you acting like this?" I asked softly. "What did I do to make you hate me?" His lips parted. For a second, I thought I saw the truth he had been burying, the truth I once believed was love. But the moment dissolved. "You didn't do anything," he said. "This is me doing my job. A clean cut. Surgical. Cruel." He left the room before I could speak again, and the door shut with a finality that made the air feel too thin to breathe. 2 years ago, that same man held my hand in a trauma room while my life bled out under harsh lights. He had whispered, "Stay with me, Grantley. Do not leave me. Not like this." His voice had anchored me in that darkness. But now, under these same lights, all he offered me was distance. I stared at the ceiling, the memory hitting me like the echo of a life that didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never did. Maybe I was just a foolish patient who mistook kindness for something more. Maybe Damien had simply done what any good doctor would do, save a stranger, then forget him. Except he didn't forget. I knew it. I felt it. Every time his eyes slipped, just for a heartbeat, those walls he built cracked. But I also knew this wasn't the moment to chase him. Not when he was clearly running from something neither of us had the courage to name. So I waited. Not for him. Not this time. I waited because the night wasn't done with me yet. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. The hallway emptied. A storm outside pushed rain against the windows like impatient fingers tapping for entry. And then, just past midnight, the door opened again. Damien stepped inside, a different man than the one who walked out earlier. His hair was slightly damp, like he had run his hands through it too many times. His shoulders sagged, not with exhaustion, but with something heavier, something that looked a lot like surrender. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. I sat up. "But you are." He exhaled, the kind of exhale that carried months of swallowed words. When he closed the door behind him, I felt the air shift. I felt the truth drawing closer, step by slow step, like gravity refusing to let him stay away any longer. He approached the side of my bed, then stopped, just shy of touching distance. "I never hated you," he said. His voice shook. "Not for a second." My breath caught. "Then why?" Because losing you once almost destroyed me, he whispered. And I can't go through that again. The storm outside crashed, thunder rattling the windows. Inside, something else cracked open between us. I came back, I said, my voice soft but steady. I'm here. Damien closed his eyes, as if those words were both salvation and punishment. You don't understand, he said. Saving you, it changed everything. I crossed lines I wasn't supposed to cross. I felt things I shouldn't. And when you disappeared after your recovery, I didn't disappear. I cut in, anger flaring. I was trying to give you space. You were the one who said we couldn't. I know what I said. He snapped, pain twisting every syllable. And I've regretted it every day. The confession hung between us. A fragile thing. A dangerous one. Rain hammered harder. The storm had reached its peak. So what now? I asked, voice barely above a breath. Because I can't pretend nothing happened between us. And you can't keep looking at me like I'm the one thing you wish you could change. Damien stepped closer, one step, then another, until he stood directly in front of me, the heat of him seeping into my skin. I don't want to change you, he said. I want to stop wanting you. But I can't. His hand hovered near mine. Not touching. But wanting. Always wanting. I rose from the bed slowly, ignoring the dull ache in my side. And when I stood before him, I saw every emotion he had fought to hide. Then stop fighting, I whispered. Damien's breath stuttered. His fingers brushed mine. A spark, a tremor, a truth neither of us could outrun. But just as the moment swelled, just as I thought he would finally let himself fall into it, the overhead speakers chimed with an emergency code, slicing through the silence like a blade. Damien jerked back. Duty called, and Damien always answered. He stepped away, eyes torn. I have to go. I know. He hesitated at the door, gripping the handle like it anchored him. This isn't over, he said. And then he was gone again, ripped away by the world that demanded pieces of him I could never claim. But the difference this time was clear as the storm outside. He wasn't running from me. He was running back to me as soon as he could. I sat back on the bed, heart pounding with something dangerously close to hope. Not the naive hope from years ago. Something deeper, stronger. Something earned. The night stretched on, but the darkness felt different now, less like an ending, more like a beginning. And for the first time since I stepped into this hospital, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, the man who once saved my life wasn't trying to erase me after all. Maybe he was trying to find his way back. The storm finally eased sometime after 2 a.m, leaving the world outside washed clean and eerily quiet. But inside that small hospital room, nothing felt quiet. Not my pulse. Not the thoughts tearing through my brain. Not the memory of Damien standing inches from me, his voice breaking as he admitted he never stopped wanting me. Sleep didn't come. I lay in the dark replaying every fractured second of our conversation. His regret, his longing, his fear, the trembling breath he'd taken right before the emergency code ripped him away. What was he going to do? What would have happened if that alarm hadn't saved him from his own heart? By the time the first hints of dawn pressed against the blinds, I still hadn't closed my eyes. My body felt heavy, but my mind refused to quiet. I kept glancing at the door, half afraid, half desperate to see him walk through it again. He didn't. Not in the early morning. Not halfway through breakfast when a nurse brought in a tray and told me in the gentlest voice that Dr. Hale has been reassigned to another ward for now. Reassigned. Right. Or avoiding me again. The old ache flickered to life. Sharp, ugly, familiar. But this time was different. Because now, silence felt less like rejection and more like a man fighting a war inside himself. Still, that didn't make waiting any easier. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed on the bedside table. I expected a notification, maybe a message from my brother. But when I glanced, Damien's name lit up the screen like some cruel miracle. I froze. For a moment, I didn't even breathe. Then I swiped the phone open. His message was short. 5 words. I need to talk. Soon. My heart slammed against my ribs. I typed back before my brain could interfere. Where? His response was instant. Roof. 15 minutes. I stared at the message, a rush of adrenaline making my fingers numb. The roof. That was bold, private, and unmistakably intentional. I didn't bother with shoes. Didn't wait for the nurse doing rounds. I grabbed the 4-pole with one hand and steadied myself, my side pulling but manageable. Every step down the hallway felt like walking towards something I'd been holding my breath for since the night he saved me. The elevator dinged open. I stepped inside. Alone. The ride up felt too slow, each floor creeping by, as if time itself wanted to punish me. When the doors opened to the access level, the air was cooler, quieter. A soft hum from industrial fans vibrated through the walls. I pushed open the heavy door to the rooftop and stepped into a world of early sunlight and fading storm clouds. Damien stood at the far edge, hands braced on the railing, head bowed as if the city below held the answers he'd been wrestling with. The moment I stepped onto the concrete, he turned. And God, he looked wrecked. His dark hair was tousled by the breeze. His scrubs were wrinkled, an ID badge hanging crookedly. His eyes, usually so composed, were anything but. They held exhaustion, conflict, and an emotion I couldn't name without burning myself. Grantley, he said softly. That sound, my name on his lips, hit me harder than I expected. You came, he added. I almost didn't, I replied. I wasn't sure if this was another one of your push and pull moments. His jaw tightened. I know I've sent mixed signals, but I'm done avoiding this. Avoiding you. I didn't move closer. Not yet. Then say what you need to say. Damien dragged a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping in front of me, but still far enough that neither of us could pretend this was about impulse. When I saved you, he began slowly, I crossed a line in my mind. Doctors aren't supposed to get attached. We're not supposed to feel what I felt. But I did, and it terrified me. I swallowed hard. You think I wasn't terrified too? His eyes flicked up. Raw? You almost died in my hands, Grantley. I've lost patience before. I've seen lives fade no matter how hard I've fought. But with you something broke in me when I thought you weren't going to make it. The wind tugged at his coat. For a second, he looked younger, more vulnerable, like the weight he carried was finally showing. I remember everything about that night, he continued. How your pulse slipped, how your breathing staggered, how I kept telling you to stay with me. Not because it was protocol, not because it was my job, but because losing you felt personal. The world around us faded into the background. And after you recovered, he said quietly, I pushed you away because I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust that my feelings were anything but a trauma response. I thought if I kept my distance, I could go back to being the man I was before. But you couldn't, I whispered. No, his voice cracked. Because the truth is, I was already gone. The moment you looked at me in that trauma room with fear in your eyes and still tried to make a joke, God, Grantley, you got under my skin in a way no one ever has. His confession hit me like a tide rising too fast to outrun. I stepped forward. Just one step. Then why treat me like I was a mistake last night? His breath shuddered. Because I saw you on that gurney again, he admitted. Bleeding. Hurt. Back in my hospital. And every nightmare I buried came right back up. I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at myself for still caring this much. Silence stretched, painful, heavy, honest. I'm tired of pretending, he whispered. My pulse thudded in my throat. Then don't pretend. Damien took a final step toward me, closing the last of the distance. I don't know how to do this, he said. I don't know how to want someone and still be the doctor I'm supposed to be. Then don't be my doctor, I said before thinking. Be anything else. Be Grantley. No, I said, voice fierce. You don't get to half love me and call it a conflict of interest. If you're scared, say you're scared. But don't use rules as a shield. His breath caught. The intensity in his eyes surged, like a dam finally cracking. I am scared, he admitted. Terrified. Because this isn't some fleeting attraction. I can lie to anyone else, but not to you. Not anymore. I stepped closer until our shoes nearly touched. Then tell me what this is. Damien exhaled slowly, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. This is me wanting you. Wanting us. Wanting something I've been too afraid to admit. My heart kicked hard. But before I could answer, he lifted a hand as if to touch my face, hesitated, and let it drop. I can't cross this line while you're still admitted, he said. It wouldn't be right. This isn't about right, I murmured. It's about real. He closed his eyes. That's what scares me. The wind whipped colder, but the heat between us only grew. Damien, I said softly, you saved my life. But you're not responsible for what I feel for you, or what you feel for me. His eyes opened, and something inside them shifted. A surrender. A choice. I'm trying, he said. For what it's worth, I'm really trying. I gave him a small, sad smile. Then try with me. He took a step back, not away, but to breathe, to steady himself. We need time, he said, and boundaries, and clarity. Okay, I said. I can do that. And when you're discharged, he added, I want to actually talk. Really talk. Without the hospital. Without the white coat. Without fear dictating every word. A slow warmth unfurled in my chest. Then I guess you'd better sign those discharge papers. He laughed, a small, genuine sound that I didn't realize I missed until that moment. I'll see what I can do, he murmured. We stood there for another long moment, not touching, but so close it felt like a promise was humming between us. Finally, he nodded once and turned for the door. Before leaving, he looked back. This isn't over, he said again. Not even close. He left. I didn't follow. Because I knew he was right. And for the first time, the uncertainty didn't terrify me. It felt like hope. I made my way back to my room, each step steadier than the last. For hours, nothing happened. No texts, no visits, no rooftop confessions. Just the quiet hum of hospital life and a mind replaying Damien's voice over and over like a song stuck on repeat. By early afternoon, my chart lay on the small rolling table beside my bed. A fresh signature marked the discharge page. Damien's signature. He didn't come to deliver the news himself. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he wanted the boundary to be clean. Or maybe he was just too afraid that seeing me again so soon after the rooftop would undo every ounce of discipline he had left. Whatever the reason, I respected it. The nurse helped me gather my things, signed off instructions, removed my four. As she walked out, she paused at the door. Oh, and there's something for you, she said, handing me a folded slip of hospital notepad paper. Dr. Hale asked me to deliver it when you left. My breath hitched. When I opened it, the handwriting was unmistakably his, neat, controlled, slightly slanted. Tonight, after sunset, Pier 7. If you want this too. A challenge. A confession. A choice. My heart thundered. I folded the paper with shaking fingers, slipped it into my pocket, and wheeled my small overnight bag behind me as I stepped into the corridor. I didn't look back at the room I'd just left. Why would I? My future wasn't in that room. It was waiting for me at Pier 7. Or at least, I prayed it was. Sunset came slowly, bleeding over the city in shades of orange and bruised gold. By the time I reached Pier 7, the sky looked like it was holding its breath. Waves lapped against wooden pillars, the smell of salt thick in the air, and a cool wind ruffled my jacket. People wandered the pier in scattered clusters, tourists taking pictures, couples sharing quiet moments, runners cooling down after long loops along the waterfront. But none of them mattered. All I could think about was him. Damien. And the note in my pocket that I had touched so many times on the way here, it had nearly worn soft at the edges. I arrived 10 minutes early, which really meant I arrived 10 minutes terrified, standing with my hands shoved in my pockets and my heart beating an uneven rhythm. I kept scanning the pier, expecting, hoping, to see him appear from the crowd. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. A thin thread of panic wound itself through my ribs. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe that rooftop confession had been heat-of-the-moment vulnerability, not something he wanted to follow through on. I exhaled shakily and forced myself to sit on a bench near the railing. The wood was warm from the day's sun. My breath fogged slightly in the evening air. I told myself to wait. I told myself he'd come. I told myself not to fall apart again. But with every passing minute, doubt bloomed. I didn't hear him approach. I only felt the sudden shift in the air, like gravity realigning around me, followed by the softest voice behind me. You came. I turned. And there he was. Damien stood a few feet away, hands shoved into his coat pockets, scrubs swapped for dark jeans, and a simple gray sweater that made him look impossibly human. His hair was still damp, as if he'd showered in a rush. His expression was equal parts relieved and afraid. Just like mine. You're late, I said, trying to sound annoyed, but the relief in my voice gave me away. His lips curved into a quiet, almost shy smile. I know. A patient needed me. I almost texted you, but I didn't want to say anything unless I was sure I could make it. Well, I murmured, you made it. Damien stepped closer, stopping just in front of me. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't sure. He exhaled, the sound heavy. I don't blame you. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. We just stood there, the evening light painting his face in soft amber, the sea wind tugging at the hem of his sweater. He looked different outside the hospital, softer, less guarded, as though the absence of fluorescent lights allowed him to breathe again. I haven't been honest with you, he said. My throat tightened. About what? About everything, he admitted. What I felt, what I feared, what I tried to bury. He moved to lean against the railing beside me, close enough that our arms skimmed. I could feel the warmth of him even through the breeze. When I told you earlier that I wanted you, he said slowly, I meant it. But it's more than that. My pulse quickened. More how? Damien turned his head, eyes locking with mine. The vulnerability there nearly undid me. Grantley, you didn't just get under my skin. You changed my entire world. His voice dipped, almost breaking. And that terrifies me. The words hit me with a force I wasn't prepared for. I didn't mean to change anything, I whispered. You didn't have to, he said. You just existed. And everything shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just a doctor fighting to save a life. I was a man terrified of losing someone he hadn't even had the right to want. My breath caught. He looked away, staring out at the water as if the confession threatened to drown him. When you disappeared after recovering, he continued. Part of me felt relieved because it meant I could pretend it was just adrenaline. But the rest of me, he shook his head, a small, painful grin tugging at his mouth. The rest of me missed you. Every day. I swallowed hard. Then why didn't you reach out? Because reaching out would have meant admitting something I wasn't ready to face. His voice seemed to break there. That I loved saving you. Not because it was my job, but because it was you. The world stilled. My breath, my thoughts, my heartbeat, everything froze. What are you saying? My voice was barely a whisper. Damien finally turned fully toward me, closing the small distance between us. I'm saying I care about you in ways I have no blueprint for. I'm saying I've spent 2 years trying not to want something I already lost. I'm saying his throat bobbed, eyes shining. I'm saying I'm done running from this. The wind whipped around us, but the warmth in my chest drowned out the cold. I stepped closer. And what if I told you you didn't lose anything? His eyes flickered, hope lighting them like a spark in the dark. I'd say I don't deserve a second chance, he whispered. And I'd tell you that you do. The wind tugged harder at his sweater. He blinked, as if trying to steady himself. Grantley, his voice faltered. I am terrified I'll break something between us before it can even begin. I'm terrified I'm already too complicated, too cautious, too damaged by what I've seen in that hospital. That makes 2 of us, I said, half a laugh slipping out. I came here terrified you wouldn't show up. He raised an eyebrow. And now I'm terrified of what happens next. A soft, breathless sound left him. Almost a laugh, almost a sob. God, he whispered. We're a mess. Maybe, I said. But maybe messes aren't the worst thing. Maybe they're just beginnings in disguise. The tension between us shifted, something electric replacing the fear. He reached out slowly, as if testing whether the world would break if he touched me. His hand hovered near mine, trembling slightly. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then, his fingers brushed against mine. Just a touch. A whisper of contact. But it felt like an entire story unfolding in a single heartbeat. Damien inhaled sharply, eyes flickering to my lips, then back to my eyes. But he didn't move closer. He didn't force anything. He just stayed there, hand against mine, heart pounding hard enough that I could feel the tremor through his fingers, and whispered, "Tell me you want this too." I squeezed his hand, threading my fingers through his with a certainty I didn't know I possessed. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Damien closed his eyes, breath shaking out of him as if he'd been holding it for months. Then, he said softly, "Let me try. Let me be better this time. Let me be honest. Let me be yours." The last word left him like a confession he had carried too long. I stepped forward, letting our foreheads touch, the world narrowing to the warmth of him and the quiet roar of the ocean below. "You already are," I whispered. His breath hitched. And for the first time in years, the fear between us didn't feel like a wall. It felt like the start of something worth fighting for.